Title: Alien Covenant. Year: 2017. Runtime: 2 hours and 2 minutes. Genre: sci-fi, horror. Cast: Michael Fassbender, Katherine Waterston, Danny McBride. Director: Ridley Scott. Tagline: Scream. The crew of the colony ship Covenant, bound for a remote planet on the far side of the galaxy, discovers what they think is an uncharted paradise, but is actually a dark, dangerous world. When they uncover a threat beyond their imagination, they must attempt a harrowing escape. Okay, so I've just come back from a screening of Alien Covenant, and though I am usually of the opinion you should wait a day or two before making a final judgment on a movie, I've got a lot of thoughts spinning in my head, and doing a review is probably the best way to get it all out. I've been following the production and pre-release of the film for a while now. Wasn't the biggest fan of Prometheus, but was open to the idea of a sequel since so much was left unanswered from that film. And if you go into Covenant looking for answers as to why the engineers allegedly created humans in this universe, or why they wanted to kill them, you'll be disappointed. No concrete answers are given, just things that are alluded to. Instead, Covenant deepens the focus onto David, the creepy synthetic from Prometheus, and introduces, or reintroduces, the menace that has the xenomorph. It's like watching two different films really. On one hand you have the story of David and his output on creation and life itself, forwarding themes presented in Prometheus, and on the other you have aliens running around causing mayhem. Despite my unkind opinions of Scott's last venture into the alien universe, I found myself more interested in David's story. He's shown to have gone further than any other android has gone before, exploring that which is taboo and showcasing less than ecstatic opinions of the people that created him. He's like what Roy Batty would have been like if he managed to gain control of the Tyrell Corporation in Blade Runner. It's a nice contrast having the unhinged pioneer that is David and the loyal robot that is Walter, both played excellently by Michael Fassbender. The characters in Covenant weren't too bad. They sure were not as stupid as those in Prometheus, but I did have my eyes rolling every 15 minutes or so when someone announced to everyone that he or she would go for a walk or a piss alone in a secluded, eerie place in an unsurveyed planet. The aliens were kind enough to eventually remove these imbeciles from the screen soon enough. Some snippets of dialogue did not sound natural, but overall the characters and the acting of the people that played them were a step up from Prometheus. I'm still scratching my head though as to why the crew needed to be couples, seeing as though they were carrying an entire army of colonists anyway. I mean, that would only increase the chances of a crew member endangering everyone by acting out of love for their spouse. The special effects were something of a moderate issue for me. A great deal of the movie's effects looked great, from the ships to the engineer home world, the blood effects and other stuff. Props to the filmmakers for going practical, and more importantly going practical convincingly, in many places including many shots of the aliens. This is definitely the goriest alien film if we don't count Requiem, and in general the gory scenes are very well done. There's 3 alien birth scenes that come very close to the classic scene from the original Alien. But there were also a lot of scenes with the alien where I didn't feel it looked right. You see, there's different types of xenomorphs in the movie. One is obviously the big chap himself, and another is the neomorph, for example, which was significantly featured in the film's marketing. Some creatures looked better than others, but I think where it counted, that is during the action or death scenes, the special effects for the aliens left something to be desired. I point my fingers at the CGI work done over the motion capture for many of the shots of the aliens. If you come to realize that what you're watching on screen isn't actually there or doesn't look real, it takes away from the tension and the film's ability to get you to relate with the characters' dreadful situations. In short, I didn't find myself flinching or scared once throughout the film. Most of the terrible stuff, like aliens bursting out of backs and throats, happens to the background characters who we haven't really invested in. And in those scenes the effects are brilliant. But in chase sequences that take place in the final third of the movie, the CGI does let the side down, to be perfectly honest. There was little evidence of puppets or animatronics being used for the adult aliens, and that's where I think they made a big mistake. The pacing was a little off. Once the character introductions are done, it gets into the thick of things pretty fast, but the haste of the film does work more against the movie than for it. I felt like asking the cinema screen to relax, to take its time. The last third of the movie is a bit all over the place. Story-wise, the film will divide audiences. Like I said, the furthering of the Prometheus mythos was quite intriguing, but it was frustratingly limited, and the inclusion of the protomorphs and neomorphs picking off people felt almost shoehorned in, and made the film sway dangerously close to Friday the 13th territory. Still, the genius of most films lies in the execution, not the concept. Many kill scenes are done competently, but you can't help feeling we've seen all this before. In fact, the part of the film that I found most creepy was actually when it was suggested that something unsavory had happened to a person audiences would be familiar with. Without going into spoilers, it was almost as if Giger was sending Scott notes from beyond the grave. What's interesting is that this segment of the film that I'm talking about was not actually shown in full, giving strength to the claim that in horror, less is more. Again, without going into spoilers, I would like to say that I am not a fan of the direction they went with the xenomorphs in this movie, in terms of their inception. And some things don't make a lot of sense. It's that fucking black goo again, and its many different powers. One character even mentions that it does different things, sometimes destroying life, sometimes creating life in a host. Make up your mind for Pete's sake. As suggested at the end of Prometheus with the Deacon, the black goo is intertwined with the beginning of the creature we call the xenomorph. My problem lies with two things. First, I don't like the direction they went within this movie. That's just my subjective opinion, both because that's how I feel and because it has the potential to hurt the established canon. The second is that I feel there is a lack of systematic structure with the alien life cycle in this movie. It seems there's many ways an alien can manifest. However, it is suggested towards the end of the film that the classic cycle of the facehugger, coming from an egg, impregnating someone with a xenomorph, is going to be the way forward in future installments. But it's where that egg came from in the first place that irritates me with this film. Overall, I think Alien Covenant is a competent but familiar horror story. It wasn't bad, nor was it magnificent. If anything, it feels like it's leading to something more grandiose and is a small puzzle piece in a much larger universe, which may make me appreciate it more in the future than I do now. With a dash of Lovecraft here and a drop of Plato there, Alien Covenant should be enough to serve if not satisfy both fans of the Alien world and the Prometheus world. Just don't expect to get blown away or to have your questions from Prometheus or Alien answered. In fact, you'll most likely have even more questions once the credits start to roll. Yikes. My rating, 6.5 out of 10.